How serious are Arsenal about Eberechi Eze? Liverpool pipped the Gunners to the signing of a young starlet. We're going to talk Victor Gyökeres, who had his first training session with the Gunners earlier on in the day. And we're going to take your questions and your thoughts from the live chat box too, as well as plenty more on this episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. Let's get into it. Hey, everybody, how are we doing? Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for bearing with me today. The show's coming out a lot later than I would have liked. We normally bring you the shows in the mornings, but sometimes things get in the way. I've had a really busy day today, which I'm grateful for, but the traveling times and then having my kids off on the summer holidays as well and having to kind of run around to make sure that they're taken care of and everything's all good, while juggling all of that stuff just made it impossible for me to go live at 10 a.m. on Tuesday morning. But we're going to get back to routine on Wednesday, but I figured I couldn't let a day pass without bringing you guys an episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner Pod. So here we are, and it's fair to say there's a good chunk of news to sink our teeth into it. And that's what is great sometimes about leaving these until a little bit later on in the day, because there's a few stories that I really want to get into. There's a few stories that I want to break down. I know that there's been some reports and some news about Leandro Trossard today, but I want to kind of park that stuff and save it for tomorrow morning's podcast, because I think if we don't, we won't have anything to talk about, number one. But number two, I really want to think about this. I really do. And I've only just read this story on my way home as I've arrived into Casa de Symeou this evening. So yeah, anyway, look, we've got a fair bit to get into. Thank you to everybody who's joining us in the live chat. Really appreciate you guys being with us, and especially at a different time as well. I know we've broken the routine, but those of you that got kids, you'll understand the challenges that the summer holidays can throw up in terms of making it all fit around your work schedule. Should we talk about Trossard today? All right, we'll touch on it a little bit. If that's what the people want, that's what the people are going to get. Before we dive into the bulk of today's content, if you haven't done so already, leave a like on the video. It really does help. Subscribe to the channel as well if you are brand new. If you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, leave us a review. And if you are wanting to become a patron, you can do so via the link in the description below. Now, sorry about the delay on the Patreon piece. I've changed my mind on what the piece was going to be about 2 or 3 times. And I had this brainwave today when I was walking from one shoot to another. I was walking along Liverpool Street in London, or past Liverpool Street Station, over London Bridge to get to Talk Sport. And I had a brainwave. And so I recorded something on my phone. It's just audio, but I thought it was interesting, the path that I went down in my own head. Anyway, maybe you guys won't find it interesting, but I'm going to upload that onto the Patreon side of things as well very shortly. As I say, I've just got home, going to cut that up and get it all ready for our patrons. There is lots of scouting videos on our Patreon page if you're interested in those for the time being. But without further ado, let's dive in to all the latest stories. Okay, Liverpool have agreed a deal to sign Will Wright from Salford City. Now, The Athletic had previously reported that Arsenal had agreed a deal to sign the 17-year-old, and it was worth around about £200,000 plus add-ons. Then it went really quiet. And the reason it's gone quiet is because Liverpool have come back in for the player. And although Arsenal had seemingly agreed a deal with Salford, there was never personal terms agreed between the Gunners and this young forward who has got a pretty special reputation. I mean, to pay 200k for a player sort of playing that far down in terms of the leagues and at 17 years old. Some people say it's good value because there's potential there. I would say that's quite a big commitment in terms of what academies tend to spend on players. And so Arsenal must have really liked this guy. They must have really liked this kid. But obviously, Liverpool have pipped us to the signing. It's said that the reason he has chosen to join Liverpool over us is because he doesn't want to uproot and he wants to remain in the Northwest. And listen, that is a completely valid reason, I think, for a 17-year-old. 17 years old, man, you're young. You probably want your family nearby. And it's not like it was Arsenal or, with all due respect, Oldham or someone like that, right? It was Arsenal or Liverpool. So if you don't support either of those two teams, then, it's a toss-up between the two. I would argue that Liverpool might even be the slightly more appealing. So, yeah, let's see how this goes, and let's see how he develops over the coming years. But Arsenal missed out on Will Wright. He is going to Liverpool from Salford City. And I mean, I've seen some people online going, "Oh, Liverpool beat us to him as well." Who cares? At this moment in time, this isn't one that we're going to regret now anyway. We might regret it in the years to come, but not now. Big shout out to Steve Stone as well, who's in the live chat. Good to see you, my friend. I heard you were unwell a little while ago, and it's good to see you in the live chat. So I hope everything is going as well as it possibly can be. And if you need anything, mate, where we all are. We're a family here. So, reach out. Not a problem. Not a problem at all. Right, let's move on then. We talked Will Wright. That's enough about that. He's not an Arsenal player. He's going to be a Liverpool player. Interesting turn of events when it comes to Benjamin Sesko, I think, over the last few days. Seemingly very, very close to joining Newcastle United. It was reported quite widely that they had agreed personal terms with him. And over the last 24 hours, we've heard that Manchester United have sort of entered the race and entered the mix. And so Benjamin Sesko might have a decision to make, although I wouldn't bank on it, because if RB Leipzig have not dropped their demands, then I can't see Man United or Newcastle United forking out to sign him. We talked about it when he was heavily linked with us. And I think at the moment, at the time of recording this, on the 29th of July, right, at 7 p.m. UK time, I wouldn't be surprised if Benjamin Sesko stays at RB Leipzig. It feels like he's been priced out of a move, and it feels like that contract that he signed last year has actually become more of a hindrance than a help. I get what he was trying to do, right? He didn't feel he was ready at the time to make the move. He felt that he maybe owed something to RB Leipzig. RB Leipzig were probably saying to him, look, sign this contract, and if someone elite comes in, we will let you go as long as the price is right. Have they reneged on something? Have they changed the sort of price point? Have they, I don't know, have they gone against what they told him? Have they moved the release clause at some point? Nobody really knows. This is what the Athletic were reporting about Benjamin Sesko earlier today. They said he's not certain to leave RB Leipzig. When he signed his contract back in 2024, it came with the understanding that if an elite club, and that is by apparently Benjamin Sesko's definition, and offered somewhere in the region of 80 to 90 million euros, which is mind-blowing to me. That's way too much money. RB Leipzig would let him go. Will Newcastle pay that? Man United? Should anybody be paying that for Benjamin Sesko? I think is the better question. And to me, the answer is no. Like, I think there is a chance that in the future, Benjamin Sesko goes on to be a really, really powerful, impactful, and top-level striker. And I will happily, at that point, eat my humble pie. But the idea of asking for 80 to 90 million euros for someone who scored 13 Bundesliga goals last season, and I know I keep banging on about that. I know that you look at other things as well. It's not just about stats. I'm one of the biggest advocates of that kind of mentality. Like, sometimes you can see it if a player's got it, right? You don't need all the stats and all the metrics in the world to tell you that. With Benjamin Sesko, I see it at times, but there's times where I don't as well. And I feel like at the moment, he falls into the kind of Rafael Leao category for me, where when you watch him in full, he doesn't look quite as good as when you watch the highlight reels. And I said all this stuff when we were linked with him. So this is not me changing my view, changing my opinion. I said that signing him represented the bigger risk when it came to him or Gyokeres. I said that the price was important in this discussion and in this conversation. And Victor Gyokeres at around about £65 million in total. That's if all the add-ons are triggered, versus Sesko at 80 to 90 million euros. Let's say it's 90 million euros. You're talking about nearly 80 million pounds. Like, I get why Arsenal went in the direction that they have, and I think they were absolutely right to. Newcastle and Man United are both desperate now, though, aren't they, for a striker? Man United really, really need one. Newcastle United, if they're about to lose Alexander Isak as well, I know that Newcastle fans tell me a lot that, the PSR stuff is really restricting them. And it's a huge frustration of theirs because they've got this incredibly wealthy ownership that just cannot flex their financial muscles in the way that they'd like. And I understand that. And I understand why, you could even package up the idea of Alexander Isak moving on, if you're a Newcastle fan, as a good thing, because getting that kind of money in gives you flexibility in the transfer market yourself. And you can then go and start to bring in multiple players, and multiple players could end up improving the squad more than just Alexander Isak would by remaining. So I get all of that stuff. But when you get that kind of money in for a player, everybody in the world knows it. And so if you're RB Leipzig and you know that Newcastle are about to do this mega deal for Alexander Isak, where's the motivation to drop your price? The only time you're going to realistically drop your price even slightly is if the player starts pushing for it. It's if the player starts to agitate for the move. And what we can say from our pursuit of Benjamin Sesko is that it doesn't seem that bothered. And so, yeah, if I were those two clubs, I don't think I'd be pushing to sign him. And I think, after all that fuss and all that talk about him potentially joining Arsenal and being the number one choice, I think the most likely outcome for Benjamin Sesko is that he remains an RB Leipzig player. Never thought I'd say that. But here we are. Victor Gyökeres, the man we've been all waiting to come in through the door, has finally arrived. And we talked about it a little bit on Sunday when we did the watch along. We talked about it on the podcast that we did on Monday as well, in which we reacted to that game, but also reacted to Victor Gyökeres being presented to the adoring fans out in the Far East. Today, he was training with the Arsenal squad and has now traveled to Hong Kong with the rest of the group. Now, one of the most common questions I've been asked over the course of the day is, will he feature against Tottenham Hotspur on Thursday? Is he ready yet? I don't think he'll be ready to play a significant role in that game. But given the hype and the buzz around him and his determination, and we talked about this yesterday, I'm sure he's been doing his utmost to stay as fit as possible and as sharp as possible, and to stay up to speed during the period where he wasn't training with Sporting, that's for sure, because of course he had refused to go back. I think there is a good chance that he will play some kind of cameo role on Thursday, even if it's 15 minutes at the end, just to kind of give the supporters in attendance and those of us at home as well what we want to see, which is Victor Gyökeres in an Arsenal shirt in a match situation leading the line. Apparently, shirt sales with Victor Gyokeres' name on the back have broken the club's record. Now, apparently, the figures are still being scrambled together, but the early indications are that the demand for shirts with Gyökeres 14 on them exceeds that of any other player in recent history. And I think that is really, really telling, isn't it? It tells you so much about the excitement and the buzz around this player's arrival. Now, I think Victor Gyokeres is incredibly marketable. He's a good-looking lad. He's a goal scorer, which is the most glamorous thing essentially you can be in football. And he's got this incredible celebration, right? And people are going to lap that up. And there will be people that are buzzing for Victor Gyokeres' first goal, not because it's going to make a difference to the scoreline or earn us points, but because they want to do this. Yeah, there will be people out there who are more excited about that than what he's going to bring to the pitch. So he is a very marketable character, and I'm not surprised actually at this news. And I think, look, the figures apparently are still being sort of confirmed and all that, but this is a great story for Arsenal, isn't it? You're going to put this out. You're going to make sure that this gets out into the public domain because, it sort of reinforces the decision that Arsenal have made, which is to go out and spend big money on this player. So, look, as I say, in response to the question around whether he'll feature on Thursday, I think he'll be part of the squad. I think he will get a brief cameo role, but that's probably about it. So just manage your expectations. Remember, Mosquera, who joined up with the team a few days before we played Newcastle, played no part. So, Arsenal are managing the fitness of these players very, very carefully. And having said that, if he's not ready, to play a significant role against Tottenham, does he even start against Villarreal next week at the Emirates? Does he start against Athletic Bilbao? And will he be ready in time for that first game of the season? Arsenal ideally wanted to bring him in earlier, and they haven't been able to do that. That'll be a little bit frustrating. But Mikel Arteta always says, doesn't he, when he brings players back that little bit earlier than expected, he always talks about their desire and their want and the fact that they were pushing really hard and it's difficult to ignore them and all the rest of it. And I suspect that will be the case, knowing what we know about Victor Gyökeres already. I suspect that'll be the case when Thursday comes around. NSW says, Harry, is there any word on Calafiori? Of course, he went off in that preseason game against Newcastle with an injury. There is no update on Ricardo Calafiori at the moment, but Mikel Arteta and Martin Odegaard, I think, are doing a press conference tomorrow, I believe, so Wednesday, in which case I'm sure they're going to be asked, and I'm sure we're going to hear something. Calafiori, was he involved in training today? I think someone said he was in the pictures, but what kind of role he played, I don't know. I don't know. Anthony confirming that. Cala back in training, saw the pictures. The Saski Guna, Cala says they practice. Viggs, apparently he has trained. So, everybody's pretty confident that he took some part in today's session. So, it's positive news, I suppose. Just very, very quickly before we pause and then we get into the Eze stuff as well as your questions. I read an interesting piece from Tom Canton earlier on football.london where he kind of highlighted the sort of takeaways, if you like, from those training pictures that Arsenal released earlier today. I thought rather than go through them and try and play sort of spot the difference Cluedo type thing, I'd read Tom's article, and the things he highlighted was that Big Gabby was missing from the images. Doesn't look like he's going to be available on Thursday. And I'm a little bit worried about whether he's going to be available for the start of the season. I don't know this for sure, but it feels like he's suffered something of a setback because he played 45 minutes apparently against Watford in that behind closed doors game. Mikel Arteta said that. And then he's not featured in any of the preseason games since. It doesn't look like he's featured in the training sessions either. So I'm a little bit worried that he might have suffered a bit of a setback. Hopefully Calafiori's fit, and hopefully Jakub Kiwior stays fit, because at least with those two, we've got that cover, haven't we? And I certainly feel much better about Jakub Kiwior, especially playing at left centre-back now, than I did 6 months ago. So credit to him for convincing everybody that, he can be a really, really impactful and strong centre-half. Zurian Timber was involved, which is obviously good news. And we saw that Victor Gyokeres took part, which we've already kind of addressed and touched on already. Right, let's take that short pause. When we come back, we're going to talk Eberechi Eze in detail. We're going to talk Leandro Trossard if you want me to. And we're going to take some of your questions and thoughts from the live chat. But before we do that, if you haven't done so already and you're watching us on YouTube, leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. If you are listening to us on Apple or Spotify, be sure to leave us a review. All of that stuff really, really does help. And if you'd like to support the podcast, you can go one further by becoming a patron on the Chronicles of a Gooner members page. The link is in the description below. There's lots of content on there to keep you occupied. Plus, you get access to every single one of our episodes ad-free. And I know that's a pretty big deal for a lot of people. So yeah, lots still to come on today's pod. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe.
That's right. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. Like and subscribe. Right, let's talk Eberechi Eze now. My question today is, are Arsenal serious about Eze? And if so, how serious? Let's have a bit of fun. If you're watching us live right now, if you're in the live chat box, rate Arsenal's seriousness around Eberechi Eze, with 1 being they're barely serious and 10 being they're very serious. And when I say serious, I mean, are they actually going to move forward and make a bid, or is this just paper talk? Are these just rumors? Is it something that they see as a kind of a must this summer, or is it something that they see as a kind of take it or leave it type of deal? Wow, the ratings are coming through very quickly. Love this. Love the interaction. PJ says 7. We've got 8, 7, 7, 10, 7. We've got a 6, which is probably the lowest we've had so far. We've got a 3. We've got a 5. So that's like kind of Arsenal being at 50-50. We've got another 5 from Ali Jones. We've got 8, 9, 7, 6. Northbank Guna says it'll be 10 once we've made sales. We've got 4, 7, 8, 8, 8. Interesting stuff. I'm not going to go through all of them because we'll just be shouting numbers out for the remainder of the podcast. But it's interesting to gauge where you guys are at. So thank you very much for that and for your interaction. Okay, so let's bring you up to speed with what was reported in The Athletic on Tuesday morning, and then I'll share my thoughts on this. Arsenal retain an interest in the player. Arsenal have reservations, however, about paying the full release clause, which is set at in excess of £60 million. They're reluctant to pay that for a player who's just turned 27. If they would drop the price later in the window, Arsenal would be interested. Sales would give the pursuit of Eze a considerable boost. A new contract for Nwaneri reduces the urgency for Eze, but does not end their interest. Okay, so let's break that down into segments, okay? Arsenal retain an interest in the player, so that's not gone away. Arsenal have reservations about paying the full release clause, which is in excess of 60 million, for a player who's just turned 27. That feels to me like the Edu mentality. Do you remember when Edu gave that interview and he talked about how Arsenal go about identifying transfer targets and then they go about executing the deals? And he talked about the age of the player being really, really important. And I remember listening to that and thinking, that sounds like a very business-led mindset, because in terms of sort of 27, 28 years old, they're players at the peak of their powers in a lot of cases. And if we have built and built and built and built, and the project's been progressing for years and years and years and years, surely we're at the point now where it's about getting over the line. And sometimes to get over the line, you have to put promise to one side in terms of that being your kind of primary sort of requirement when looking for a player. And you have to look at where players are at right now, and you need to find players that can come in and aid you in achieving your goals, right away, basically. So I felt like that was a very Edu kind of outlook, and it was one that was driven maybe by the business, the club, but the Edu was probably on board with, because the way he talked about it, he was very sort of confident in saying all of that stuff. Recently, though, I think there's been a bit of a shift, and this goes back to last summer, because when Mikel Merino was being heavily linked with a move to Arsenal, if you remember correctly, it was said, it was reported, don't know how true it is, but it was reported that Edu and Mikel Arteta kind of disagreed on this one, and that there were other people at the football club that didn't feel that, given Mikel Merino's age, that it was worth going and spending the money that Real Sociedad were demanding to bring him in through the door. And shortly after that, we heard that Edu was leaving, Edu went, etc., etc. So with Andrea Berta coming in, are we still, adhering to this policy of signing players of a certain age? Well, clearly not, because we've just gone and got Victor Gyökeres. So I think, right, that Arsenal are a lot more open-minded today about the age of a player than they were 12 months ago. I think they've realized that they're at the kind of win now stage, and that if they want to achieve that, they're going to have to slightly change their sort of their search terms, if you like, when looking for people. And actually, when you think about it, like, I know people will say that the Eze money is a lot of money, because once upon a time when I was a kid growing up, a £10 million transfer was a big bloody deal. Now that's a cheap transfer. That's a pittance in the modern game. We've seen people like Anthony Elanga move for like 60 odd million quid. We've seen Brian Mbeumo move for like 65 million pounds. These guys are not better players than Eberechi Eze. And if Arsenal are happy with the deal that they managed to get themselves for Noni Madueke, which is about 52 million pounds all in, I know he's younger, but because they think that that's what the market looks like at this moment in time, then how can they be really against and, you know, really put off by the Eberechi Eze release clause? So although I'm not seeking here for a second to doubt, you know, the reporting or the work that's gone into this report, I feel like I've seen a slight shift in Arsenal's transfer policy over the last 12 months. And that shift leads me to believe that Arsenal are still very much interested here. Sales would give the pursuit of Eze a considerable boost. And as I said, we might not go into it in great detail on this episode, but we'll certainly cover it off on the next one. It looks like Leandro Trossard could be leaving. And Leandro Trossard's only got a year left on his contract, so you can't expect to generate anything close to the outlay that we'd be required to make to get Eberechi Eze coming in the other way. But I think for Arsenal, it's probably more about saving wages than it is having the ability to sort of generate transfer fees. Because you're not going to pay that 60 million in one go. I think there's been a lot of reports saying that the release clause allows the payments to be made in installments over a certain period of time. So you can be creative with that side of things, right? But I think when you look at the market, 60 plus million for Eze doesn't sound crazy. The 27-year-old thing, not really an issue for me anymore. I think Arsenal have kind of moved past that. If they believe the player is the right fit, they'll make that judgment accordingly. On sales, I don't expect us to get a lot in terms of transfer fees. But if we could move Trossard on, if that's what he wants as well, if we're going to end up moving the likes of Zinchenko on, possibly, Reece Nelson looks like he's going out the door, we're going to save on salaries. And I think that's probably what's more important to Arsenal at this moment in time. It also says in the piece that the new contract from Nwaneri reduces the urgency for Eberechi Eze. Eberechi Eze, if you like him, go and get him. And don't sit there worrying and concerning yourself about what this means for Ethan Nwaneri or even for Max Dowman, because I've heard some people saying that it could block Max Dowman's development. If Eberechi Eze is 27 years old and you think that Max Dowman will eventually take up that position, well, even when Eberechi Eze's 30, Max Dowman will still only be like 18 or something. So I wouldn't worry about that. And on Nwaneri's side of things, right, if he's going to sign the new contract, which we've heard is all agreed, great. Okay. That protects his value. And then let them fight for the place. You know, let them battle it out. That's competition. We want that. It's healthy. It's good. And if you've got that competition and, you know, Eze comes out on top, fine, happy days. If Nwaneri comes out on top, no problem. But having Eze as a backup, that's going to be brilliant. I just don't see a downside to this. I think a lot of the time, like we sort of obsess over like where someone's going to get in, how many minutes they're going to get. We are going to have so many games over the course of the season. We're going to have so many injuries over the course of the season. All of these things really, really impacted us last season. And if we haven't, after last season, learned the lesson of you can never have too many good players, then I don't know what needs to happen for us to wake up and smell the coffee. So for me, go and get him. Go and do this deal. I understand that you might not want to do it this week or next week, and that you might end up going back in to do this deal a little bit later on, once you've got a bit of money in the coffers, or you at least have some clarity with regards to who's going and who's staying, so that you can kind of manage your wages and stuff accordingly. But if we don't go in with an actual offer between now and the end of the window, I'll be very, very surprised. Jay Love is a Palace fan, apparently, and says, I'm a Palace fan, and I'll tell you this, Eze will be joining Spurs. Why would anybody in their right minds join Spurs now over Arsenal? I just don't understand that. Not a chance if both clubs are in. If he goes to Spurs, it's because Arsenal weren't serious, meaning all your ratings about the seriousness of Arsenal's interest were well off. Well off. I guess the thing to weigh up, and this is the point I made, because while I was at TalkSport earlier, I wrote my sort of very rough show notes for today. I guess the question is, when you're talking about a 27-year-old and you're talking about that kind of price, it's, you got to weigh up the, whether this decision makes business sense versus whether it makes footballing sense. And it definitely makes footballing sense. And because it makes so much footballing sense, I'm fine with us overlooking the points that maybe mean it doesn't fully make business sense. Does that make sense? Yeah. How many times have I said sense there in the space of the last minute? But yeah, those are my thoughts. And that's my take on that. Right. Short pause. When we come back, your questions, your thoughts from the live chat to wrap up the show. Get involved. I was supposed to click the breaker there. It didn't work. There we go. You can tell it's been a long day. A long day. What time did I leave the house this morning? I think I was up and about and like ready to get out by about 6. And then I've been out all day using London transport. And I've come home and I've sat down to do a podcast. And I'm almost coming across as if I'm drunk because I'm actually so tired. But we're nearly there. We've nearly made the end. Let's get your questions and thoughts then. Let's take this one from Jason, who says, if Xavi Simons and Eze are available for a similar fee, who do you think the club will go for? I think the club will go for Eberechi Eze. I've had nothing or heard nothing to suggest that Xavi Simons is a serious target for Arsenal. And so, we know that there's an interest in Eze. And so I think that's the one that the club would go for. I think Xavi Simons has maybe been on our radar in the past, has been discussed maybe in the past. I like Xavi Simons. Like, there have been times when I've watched him and I thought he looks really, really talented, and I've almost been blown away. But there's been other times where I've not really understood the hype. And I guess when you're talking about players of a certain age, there's going to be that inconsistency at times. And, you can see glimpses and flashes. But I feel like we've got to this place in football now where we're paying massive, in fact, at times ridiculous amounts of money to sign players who have only ever shown what they're capable of in flashes. And we almost overlook their inconsistencies because we've just accepted that the market's gone bloody crazy and this is what it's like nowadays. So, yeah, in answer to your question, I've gone around the houses a bit, but I think Arsenal would move for Eze of the two of them. Alex White says, Harry, what's your thoughts on what Rory said? Are you talking about, just to clarify, Alex, the comment about football shirts? Is that what you're talking about? Look, I worked with Rory yesterday on the club on his podcast. He was very, very kind enough to invite me on. Really, really enjoyed the chat. It was myself, Rory, and Flav. Big Tottenham fan, but one of the real sensible ones out there, and a real good friend. As people, I absolutely love them both to bits. Do I agree with all their footballing opinions? No, I'm sure they'll tell you the same about mine. On Rory's point about the shirts, I don't really care what other people wear, but where I had at the beginning, when I first heard it, when I heard the beginning, I sort of thought, oh, this is a bit strong. And then I sort of broke it down and I started to think about it in my own head. Look, me personally, I don't like wearing Arsenal shirts. I wear a lot of Arsenal merch. I wear a lot of Arsenal gear, but I don't wear the kit that much. I had to wear it today, actually, for a shoot. And I took it in my bag because I didn't want to wear it on my journey. And it wasn't because I'm not proud. Like, I will wear a t-shirt with a cannon on it or whatever. My reason for not wearing football shirts much is I don't like the material. The material irritates the life out of me, especially when it's a bit warm and stuffy. I just can't stand it. It's the material for me that puts me off. And that's me just being weird. So I don't wear a lot of football shirts. So if someone says I don't wear football shirts, I'm kind of like, okay, cool. Like I don't wear them that much either. But I don't understand why you'd be annoyed at other people wearing football shirts. Like kind of each to their own. I actually prefer like wearing the training gear or some of the tracksuit tops or whatever. Anthony's asking me whether I'm talking about the replicas or the players tops. I'm talking about the replicas. I don't buy the players ones. They're way too expensive and I don't earn anywhere near enough money. It's probably because I haven't got enough patrons. I'm kidding. But yeah, like to me, they don't really appeal to wear them. But as you can see, because I've been showing them off and, you know, during the season, we had the home shirt and the away shirt on display and the third shirt and we change them. I buy them, but I don't wear them. I buy them for my kids. My kids absolutely love them. But for me, they're just not very comfortable. Now, that again, I've got no issue with anyone else. And I quite like turning up to the Emirates and seeing a sea of red. So I like it. I like the fact that people wear them. But me personally, I'm weird and I don't wear them all that often. But the response to that has been crazy. Like, I don't know if anybody saw it. Natalie Sawyer turned up yesterday to do a show with Rory and wore her Brentford shirt underneath her jacket and then sort of took it off sort of mid-show to reveal her kit to try and see how Rory would react. But yeah, it was yeah. I think it's pre-season when a conversation like that has blown up the way it has. Like I actually bumped into Rory today when I was leaving TalkSport. He was coming in, and he said to me, "I can't believe how many people have sort of responded to that." And yeah, but Rory's a great person though. I really like him. Really good lad, and I've known Rory for a long, long time. When I first started working at 90 Min, Rory was a part of the panel that used to sort of meet to do the shows. And yeah, good guy. Not sure I agree with all of his takes. In fact, I probably disagree with most of them, but he knows that. But yeah, big response to that. Right, let's take a couple more. What else have we got? Donald says, when are you going to go on the latte firm with FK? I actually went on a few weeks ago. So we'll try and arrange something with FK soon. Try and get him on here as well. That'd be cool. What else have we got in the live chat? Lots of you talking about whether or not you wear shirts. It's a big debate, isn't it? It's a big bloody debate. Let's keep scrolling through. Saski Guna says he wears his Arsenal stuff and his tattoo of the badge on his calf around the world and on his travels. It's how you make friends and start conversations, really. Yeah, that's a good side to it for sure. I'm just laughing at some of these shirt comments. For God's sake, why is everybody taking this debate so seriously? It's such a pre-season debate, isn't it? It's such a pre-season debate. That has just kind of gone crazy. Nunandinho says, what's your favorite Arsenal kit? My favorite home kit, I'd say, was the what year was it? Hold on, let me just Google it because I want to make sure I give you the right year. My favorite away kit was the black one that we had recently, not the one with the green and red. I'm talking about the black and bronze one. That was my favorite. My second favorite away kit is this one, which I'm just loading up the picture to show you now on my phone. Hold on a second. That one. Remember this one? I remember how happy I was the day I got this kit and I got Harry number 7 on the back because I was going through my phase where I thought I was Robert Pires. And this is my favorite home one. 0203. Love that kit. Nice and simple. I also like the 97-98 one that I've got in the background as well. Right. A few more questions. Ganto says, first North London derby outside of London, score prediction. I think we beat them. I actually was at Spurs' game on Saturday against Luton, preseason friendly. I was doing it for radio. I didn't go there out of choice or for fun. And they didn't look very good, but I know it's preseason and you shouldn't read into it too much. But I'm confident that even in this environment, we've got enough in the locker to beat them. Saskia Guna says, are you doing a watch along on Thursday? I am. And I'm very, very much looking forward to it. Figured out that little problem I had with getting the clock to roll all the way up to 90 as well. So, yeah, looking forward to it. Hope you've enjoyed those. The response has just been incredible. So thank you for all of that. Anthony says that the Rafael Leao links have resurfaced again. I can't see us signing Rafael Leao, regardless of what happens, whether Trossard goes or not. I just can't see it. Richard says, "What's your thoughts on Xhaka's return to the Premier League?" I got to be honest, right? Because I did a video today with Will Pugh on Sun Sport, and we talked about this, and I just can't get my head around this. I think from a Sunderland perspective, this is a fantastic bit of business. You're getting this experienced top level player in through the door. He can be a real leader. He's got that Premier League experience. Probably feels like he's got a bit of a point to prove as well. So I can understand why Sunderland jumped at this opportunity. If I'm Granit Xhaka, though, I'm not sure I would have made this move. I don't know. I'm not sure that I would have made this move. Yeah, I don't really see the benefit in it for Granit Xhaka. Like, he's going to come in, he's going to join a team that are going to struggle. He's going to have to carry a lot of that responsibility on his shoulders. And I just think at this stage in his career, I don't know if I was him, if I would have the stomach to go kind of take a step back again, because that's what it is. Ganto says he wanted to get away from Ten Hag. That could have been the thing as well. I'm sure he's being paid handsomely. He obviously doesn't mind living in England. I think he looks at Sunderland and thinks, massive football club. They're spending a lot of money. There's a big project there. They're ambitious. It's a real passionate fan base that I can probably connect with. And because he's probably feels like he's got a point to prove in the Premier League, he thinks that this will do him good. And listen, best of luck to him. Fair play to him. I defended Granit Xhaka when many didn't, and I've still got my Granit Xhaka little figurine from Dan Potts from all those years ago when we used to debate him almost on a weekly basis. But I back Granit Xhaka to do well there. I think it's great for Sunderland. I'm not sure I would have made that move if I was him, but he's chosen to. So best of luck to him. Someone asked me as well, and this will be the last one. What was your first game? My first game was back in September 1996, and Arsenal lost at home by 3-2 in the UEFA Cup. It would have been at that time to Borussia Mönchengladbach, German side. We went a goal down. In fact, we went 2 goals down. Juskowiak and Effenberg. I always remember Stefan Effenberg's performance that night. He was fantastic. Arsenal pulled one back through Paul Merson. And then I think it was Paslak scored for Mönchengladbach before Ian Wright made it 3-2 to them late on by sort of pulling a goal back for us. So, yeah, that was my first game. And it's really interesting because that day was just this amazing day and one that I'll always remember. And I would have been about 6 years old at the time. And we, at the time, we had a few years where we lived in South London, and my dad told me in the morning that he was picking me up from school early to take me to the dentist. And he came to my school and he picked me up. And I was like, you're going to the dentist, blah, blah, blah. Like at that point, like, listen, in those days, any excuse to leave school early, right? But to leave school early to go to the dentist, it wasn't exactly the most appealing thing. I was actually quite happy to just stay at school on that particular day. But my dad came, collected me. And when we got in the car, he said, we're not going to the dentist. We're driving up to North London and we're going to Arsenal against Borussia Mönchengladbach. Now, I had no idea who Borussia Mönchengladbach were at the time, but I learned pretty quickly when they outplayed us and beat us on our own patch. But that was my first game, and I'll always remember it, and I'll never forget it. And the reason He told me we was going to the dentist was because I talked too much. Probably makes sense for those of you that know me now. And I would have told someone at school, and that would have got him in trouble. So that's why he kept it quiet. But yeah, unbelievable experience. I'll always remember it. I'll always remember that feeling of walking out into Highbury for the first time. You know, when you come out of the concourse and into the stadium, that first glance I got, the floodlights, it's just amazing. Truly amazing. Anyway, right, I'm going to love you all and leave you all. Thank you so much for joining me on this slightly late episode of the pod, but really do appreciate you guys bearing with me and sticking with me, and appreciate the fact that so many of you have joined despite it not being our usual time. Really do appreciate it. Don't forget to leave a like on the video if you haven't done so already. Can we get up to 300-400 likes? That would be amazing. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Until the next one, take care of yourselves and have a wonderful day. Up the Arsenal. Goodbye.